Alright, let's talk about volleyball positions. With 5 different main volleyball positions to choose from, it can be tricky for a newer volleyball player to understand what position would fit their skill set the best. There are just certain traits and attributes that work better for some positions compared to others. In most cases, the volleyball coach that you play for will be the one that decides the position that you play. But before you get roped into playing a position that might not fit your game the best, I have dedicated this video into breaking down the 5 main volleyball positions and figuring out which volleyball position would be best suited for your game. There have been plenty of cases where a volleyball player has been stuck at a position that they don't like playing and it has ruined their love for the games. So today, we're gonna try and prevent that. If you like these explanation videos for volleyball, make sure to leave a like, comment down below what position you currently play, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new. I promise you, you won't regret it. With all that out of the way, let's hop into the video. First volleyball position we have is setter. Their job is to set the volleyball to their fellow teammates and put them in positions in order to make them successful. A really good setter can make attacking for your team really easy, but a not so good setter can make it even that much more complicated into scoring points by attacking the volleyball. Here are some traits that I think make for good setters. Number 1, you have to have a good sense of practical intelligence. Being smart simply isn't enough to succeed as a setter. In order to be a good setter, you need to have a full, complete understanding of the game of volleyball. You need to understand what the good blocking matchups are for your team. For example, if you have an outside hitter on your team that's a taller, better, more athletic player than the opposite hitter trying to block them, that's probably the player you should be going to in that match. Knowing the little things, like knowing how to get all your teammates involved and engaged on offense, and who your go-to guy is in the crucial moments of a match that decides the victor. These are all things that a setter needs to be aware of and keep in mind when they're setting the volleyball. Number 2, you need to be a very accurate and precise athlete. Think of it like basketball when you're shooting a 3-point shot. The best basketball shooters in the world can stand anywhere on a court and shoot the basketball with a very high chance of it going in. The same type of accuracy is needed for a good setter. What makes a really good setter is a setter who is able to put the ball in a hittable position even when the pass isn't favorable. The best setters in the world do this at a very high rate, and that's why accuracy is so important when it comes to this position. Precision is everything when it comes to setting a volleyball. And then lastly, setters are usually the leaders of their volleyball teams. They have the sole responsibility of making sure everybody on the court is successful, and because of this, it naturally throws them into a leadership position. So if you're a person or an athlete with strong leadership skills and convictions, it'll make setting that much easier for you to be successful at. Bonus trait, this is one of the 2 volleyball positions where if you're a left-handed athlete, this position favors you. Let me know down in the comments if you know why. Here are some of the pros and cons of being a setter. Pros, you get to play a lot of volleyball. In a standard 5-1 volleyball offense, setters play all the way around, which means they play the 3 rotations in the front and in the back. Another pro, you get to touch the ball a lot. Almost every single possession, your responsibility is to touch and set the second ball, meaning in most instances, you're going to be the player on the court who ends up touching the ball the most. And in a sport where contacting the volleyball only happens for a fraction of a second, it's pretty cool that you get to do this. And the last pro is you get to be super creative when you're a setter. Setting is an artwork, and as you get better at it, you'll find that you'll be able to do things that you didn't think was possible before. Like one-handed back sets to your opposite. That'll make for some pretty crazy cool highlights. Some of the cons of being a setter include the difficulty of the position. I would be lying to you if I said playing setter was easy. You have a lot of responsibility on the court, and if you're not doing your job, then your teammates are going to suffer. It can also be tricky sometimes trying to navigate different hitters and their temperaments. So I'm a setter, and to give you an example, on my LBC men's volleyball team this year, I had one middle who liked their 1-ball sets really low and almost just over the tape. He wanted it to be super quick so he would have a better chance of beating the blockers. And in most cases, he would be hitting that volleyball straight out of my hands. And then for another one of my middles, he was a taller athlete, and he liked to have the 4-ball a lot higher up in the air so he could just hit over people when the set was right. It was the same set that I was giving both of them, but because of their different temperaments, it had to be different. And as setters, it can be pretty annoying to have to complement different hitters according to their temperament. Let's move on to the next position, outside hitter. There are 2 outside hitters on every volleyball team, and these guys are the workhorses of the volleyball team. As an outside hitter, you need to be able to do almost every single skill in volleyball, from serving to serve receive to hitting and blocking. This is arguably the most important position in volleyball, just because of all the responsibilities you have as an outside hitter. Some good traits that make for a good outside hitter include being a well-rounded athlete. What I mean by this is, since you have so many responsibilities as an outside hitter, you kind of need to be able to do everything on a volleyball court. Having a good jump, being able to move quickly, and having a good reaction time will all help you be be successful as an outside hitter. Another very important trait when it comes to being an outside hitter is having a good mental toughness. There will be a lot of instances as an outside hitter where your team will be looking at you to succeed and win the match. It just comes with the nature of the position. A lot of volleyball teams rely pretty heavily on their outside hitters, and some of the other hitting volleyball positions are almost looked as relief to give their outside hitters a little bit of an easier job. And this next trait I like to call the ability to carry your volleyball team. It's quite literally exactly how it sounds. Now, while volleyball definitely has a super team important aspect to it, meaning that one volleyball player simply can't carry their team to victory, I feel that outside hitters personally have the most weight to carry on the team. And if they're able to battle through all adversity and make the best of their situations, the likely chance of your team succeeding and winning the match definitely goes up. Pros of being an outside hitter: you have a lot of responsibility on the volleyball court. If you like having a mentality like that, this position will definitely fit you well. Another pro, just like setter, you get to play all the way around, playing the 3 front row rotations and the 3 back row rotations. And the last pro is that you get to use all the main volleyball skills. You're going to be needed as a serve receiver, a server, a passer in defense, and a hitter and a blocker in the front row. Some of the cons of being an outside hitter, or funny enough, the pros of being an outside hitter: you have the most responsibility on the court. Sometimes a win or a loss is dependent on the skills of an outside hitter, and that can suck. Another con is the position can be both physically and mentally draining. It's definitely one of those positions that'll put a little bit more wear and tear on your body, and that's why I think mental toughness is another important aspect of being a good outside hitter. Volleyball is a mental game just as much as it is a physical game, and if your outside hitters aren't mentally tough, then your team is going to have a hard time. The next position we have up is middle. A middle has 2 main responsibilities on a volleyball team. They're in the front row to hit, and they're in the front row to block. Middles only play the 3 front rotations and get subbed out for a libero in the back row, and there are 2 middles on every volleyball team. Now, if you made it this far in the video, you'll notice that I haven't included height as being one of the main traits for any volleyball position. And what you might have expected me to do is include it as a trait for middles. Contrary to popular belief, I do not believe that the tallest volleyball player on your team should be a middle. I think height almost helps every single volleyball position in some way or another, and just because you're the tallest athlete on your volleyball team doesn't necessarily mean that you should be the middle. If you have great footwork and reaction time when it comes to serve receive and your passing is really good, just because you're the tallest doesn't mean you should play middle. Rather, you should play a position like outside hitter where you can be utilized in serve receive. Some traits that I do think are important for playing middle is being an explosive athlete. You need to be able to have a quick first step and be able to get off the ground with a bunch of power and force, whether you're blocking or hitting the volleyball. Like I said, just because you're super tall doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be a good middle. But if you are a super powerful, explosive athlete, I can definitely make an argument that you will have a good time at this position. Another super important trait when it comes to playing middle is the ability to read. As I said before, the middle's most important job is blocking. And if you're able to read the other setter and know where they're gonna go with the volleyball before they set it, you're gonna have such an easier time getting to the pins and setting up your block and getting blocks in general. Being able to pick up on little tells from the setter that might give you the insight on where they're about to set the volleyball will definitely help you when you're trying to block. And the third trait that I think makes for a great middle is having a ton of energy. The middle is the hype man position in volleyball, and if a middle can get all their teammates fired up and ready to go, it'll give your team a ton of positive momentum and make the game easier for everyone. Pros of being a middle: you're the most important blocking position. You're the first line of defense for your passers in the back row, and even if you aren't getting blocks that are going straight down on the other team's side of the net, if you're able to get soft touches and take some of that speed off the opponent's swing, it'll make your defenders' jobs that much easier of passing the volleyball. Another super big pro is middles have a lot of opportunity to make for some big momentum plays. Not only is volleyball a mental game, it is also a game of momentum. Not all volleyball plays are worth just 1 point, although they might be on the scoreboard. If you have a crazy huge spike as a middle attacker for your team, that could be the momentum play that you need in order to make that final push at the finish line to finish and win a volleyball set. I'd say the biggest con of being a middle is it's not always the most rewarding volleyball position to play. Middles that I've talked to in the past, this is their biggest issue with the position. Sometimes all the work and effort that you're putting into being a middle won't be recognized by your team. There will be instances where you might not get set a ton, or the blocking that you're doing isn't leading to block touch touches or blocks. And because of this, sometimes playing middle doesn't feel super rewarding. And although you might not feel like you're making an impact on the game with your effort, trust me, it's making a difference. And you just need to come to terms with the fact that playing middle, it might not always reward you all the time, but it's not like it's not going to reward you at all. The next volleyball position we have is the opposite hitter, aka oppos. Now, along with having the coolest nickname in the sport of volleyball, oppos, they're the other pin hitter opposite of an outside hitter. They play in the front right side of the court, and one of the biggest responsibilities you have as an opposite hitter is what you'll end up doing is usually be blocking the other team's best outside hitter. This is a huge responsibility as an opposite hitter, and if you're able to give the other team's outside hitter a difficult time, your chances of winning a volleyball match will go up. There are some cases where an opposite hitter will only play the 3 front rotations, and then a defensive specialist will be subbed in to play their back row for them. But in most cases, an opposite hitter will go all the way around playing both the front row and the back row. When it comes to traits for an opposite hitter, I like to think of it like this. Imagine if the middle position and the outside hitter position had a baby. Boom, opposite hitters are born. This is the type of position that'll reward you for being a well-rounded athlete, although you don't need to be as well-rounded as an outside hitter. The same thing is true for a middle. You don't need to be the most explosive athlete on the court, but again, being an explosive opposite / right side hitter will help you succeed in the role. Another trait that's super important when it comes to being an opposite hitter is blocking. If you find that your best skill as a volleyball player is putting up a block, this position is probably the best for you. Another third physical trait that'll definitely help you as an opposite hitter is being lefty. This is the second of the 2 volleyball positions that favor the left-handed athlete. This is because if you're an outside hitter hitting on the left side of the court, when you get set, you have to wait for that volleyball to go over your head before you can make contact with your left hand. Since you're playing on the opposite side of the court on the right side, what makes being a right-handed outside hitter easy makes being an opposite left-handed hitter just as easy. You don't have to wait for that volleyball to cross your body, and instead your first point of contact is your left hand. I hope I did a good job of explaining that right. Basically, being a left-handed opposite hitter just leaves that much less room for error. And in a game where making less errors than the other team can be the difference between winning and losing, being a lefty oppo can make it that much easier to be successful. Pros of being an opposite hitter: if serve receive isn't your strongest skill, this position's probably for you. You do a lot of blocking, a lot of hitting, and some defense in the back row, but you're usually not going to be used in serve receive, which can be super tricky, probably the hardest skill in volleyball. So yeah, as an opposite hitter, you get to do a lot of the fun skills with not having to worry so much about the not so fun skills. Maybe serve receive is super fun for you. If I offended you, I apologize. Cons: this is a position that is very setter dependent. The success of an opposite hitter, especially on offense, usually depends on how well a setter is able to perform a back set. This is because the opposite hitters are behind the setters when they set the volleyball. And if you have a setter that struggles to do back sets consistently, you might not have the easiest of time hitting the volleyball on the opposite. And because of this setter dependency, sometimes your role as an opposite hitter will be a little bit smaller than the roles of other positions. You might become a second or even third option for your volleyball team on offense, and sometimes this is okay. But just know that especially when you're on the front row, the job that you will always have full control over is trying to block the outside hitter on the other team. That will definitely be a factor in helping your team pursue victory. The last volleyball position we need to talk about is libero. These guys are the players in the opposite color jersey from all of their teammates. Liberos do everything defense and passing. Those are their jobs. Liberos are super important when it comes to serve receive. So if you find that receiving serves is one of your best volleyball skills, maybe you're cut out to be a libero. A good libero will make your setter's job so much easier. And in most cases, when the job of a setter is easier, the job of the hitters becomes, well, even easier. Liberos have the power to dictate the first touch. And if that first touch is a good one, good things are probably going to happen for your volleyball team. Traits that I think make for a good libero is being a quick and agile athlete. You need to be able to just sometimes throw your arms out in hopes of creating an angle to get that volleyball up on defense. And when the other team is ripping serves at you, you need to be able to create the right angle with your platform in order to make a good pass for your setter to set. If you are a flexible or acrobatic athlete. This will also help you succeed in being a libero. In a lot of clips you'll see on the internet, you'll see liberos flying all over the court, making these crazy acrobatic saves. And the reason why liberos are usually the ones doing this is because that's usually the best part of their game, is their defense. If you don't have any fear of hitting the floor and you just love diving all over the place, this position will reward your efforts. Lastly, the game of volleyball is usually seen as a tall person's sport. And while in a lot of instances, being a little bit taller than the rest of your peers can help give you an advantage on the volleyball court, libero is the one position where you don't necessarily need to be super tall in order to be successful. Because you're only a back row player and you're not even allowed in the front row, you don't need to be worried about hitting over players or hitting around blocks or any of that. That's just something you don't have to worry about. Instead, your focus is being a grounded, quick, and agile athlete with the ability to make all of the passes necessary for your team to succeed on defense and serve receive. Pros, if I haven't already said this before, if you love defense and if you love passing the volleyball, this position is definitely for you. Without a doubt in my mind, it is the most important back row volleyball position. And the greatest thing about it is that it rewards your hustle. If you're running 30 feet off the volleyball court and throw out your leg and kick the volleyball to save it back for your team to send it over the net and you win the point, well, guess what? The only reason that you'll win that point is because you hustled on defense. Trust me. Cons. Some cons of the position. You have the highest chance of getting hit in the face, statistically. You're on the court for 5 of the 6 volleyball rotations. The only time you come off is for a half rotation when the middles are serving. In the women's game, liberos are allowed to serve, but in the men's game, liberos aren't allowed to serve. So if you're a girl libero, you might get the ability to serve, but if you're a guy libero, you'll never be able to serve. But because you're in the back row for 5 of the 6 possible rotations and only in the back row, statistically, if you do the numbers right, you're gonna have the highest chances of getting hit in the face. Just make sure you know that risk before you put yourself in a libero jersey. Also, just note that the libero position is not easy by any means. Serve receive is one of the hardest aspects of volleyball, and as a libero, you're gonna be doing a lot of it, like a lot of it. The last thing I'll say is that as a libero, sometimes you don't get the recognition you think you deserve for your great libero plays. What I mean by that is, if you have a crazy dig on defense, but then your hitter puts the ball away on a spike, 99% of the time, your team is gonna celebrate the success of your hitter, rather than that crazy play you just made on defense. So just know that sometimes you won't necessarily get the recognition you deserve, but I will say, as a setter myself, to all the liberos that I played with in the past, I could not do my job without you guys. Just know that you are important, although your teammates might not tell you that ever. And that wraps up the 5 main volleyball positions. My highest recommendation to all of you watching this video is that you try out at least 2 or 3 of the volleyball positions before you commit to one. My whole life until I got to college, I was not only a setter, but also an opposite hitter. I loved both of those positions, and when I got to college, I think some of the skills I had as an opposite hitter, like my blocking and my attacking, has helped me be a better setter. Because sometimes as a setter in the front row, what being an opposite hitter taught me is that I can just turn and spike the volleyball on 2, and this will help open the offense for the rest of my hitters. So I highly recommend that you try out at least 2 or 3 different volleyball positions, because at the very least, this will help you be comfortable with more volleyball skills and give you more opportunity to find yourself on the court if you decide to play on a legitimate volleyball team. I gotta say, coaches love a volleyball player who can do it all. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, comment down below if you haven't had a volleyball position already, what volleyball position you think will best suit you, and make sure to subscribe if you're new. Not only are we coming out with more volleyball tutorials and how-tos, I also cover so many other aspects of the game of volleyball, including playing a decent amount myself. So make sure to subscribe so you never miss out on a future upload. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.